2 Samuel part 2. Heavenly Father, as we look at your word, may this edify, encourage, and enlighten. And in Christ's name, amen. So now chapter 11, David's failures. We saw his victories. Now we will see his failures. The God of the Bible is truthful about his heroes in his word. He will be frank with us about David. Yes, this will be David. This will be David, the psalmist, the mighty king of Israel. David sends Joab and his servants with him and all Israel. They destroy the children of Ammon and besiege Rabbah. David stays at Jerusalem. David tarries at Jerusalem. In the evening time, David arises from his bed and walked upon the roof of the king's house. And from the roof he saw a woman washing herself. She's naked. And the woman was very beautiful to look upon. David sent and inquired after that woman, Who is that? And one said, Is not this Bathsheba, the daughter of Eliam, the wife of Uriah the Hittite? The wife of Uriah the Hittite. She's married. Oh, that's all right. David doesn't mind that. Adultery there. And David sent messengers and took her, and she came in unto him, and he lay with her, for she was purified from her uncleanness. And she returned to her house. So the woman conceived and sent and told David, Hey, I'm with child. I'm pregnant. David sends to Joab saying, Send Uriah the Hittite. And Joab sends Uriah to David. When Uriah was come in, David demands of him how Joab did, how's the war prospering. David tells Uriah, now see, he's hoping Uriah will go home and have sexual relations with Bathsheba to cover up. And Uriah is going to think that it's his baby. Well, see the cunning nature of this sinful man here. So Uriah, he tells Uriah, go to your house and wash your feet. Uriah leaves the king's house, and there followed him a mess of meat from the king. But Uriah doesn't go to his house. See, verse 9, it says, Uriah slept at the door of the king's house with all the servants of his lord, and went not down to his house. There'll be a problem then. See, Uriah doesn't want to go to his house and cover up what happened. Uriah doesn't know anything about this, but if Uriah won't go and the matter won't be covered up, what David did to Bathsheba there, well, David will have to go about some other way to conceal the matter. So David sees Uriah. He's not going to his house. Camest thou not from thy journey? Why don't you go to your own house? Uriah says, the ark and Israel and Judah abide in tents. They're out in the battlefield, and my lord, Joab, and the servants of my lord, they're encamped in open fields. Does it make sense for me to go and have a wonderful time at home when my comrades are fighting for their lives? No, he says, shall I then go to my own house to eat and drink and to lie with my wife? As thou livest and as thy soul liveth, I will not do it. See the loyalty here of Uriah? A faithful servant of David, a faithful soldier. David tells Uriah, stay here today also, and tomorrow I will let thee depart. So Uriah abode in Jerusalem that day and the morrow. When David had called him, he did eat and drink before him, and he made him drunk. David wants to get Uriah so disoriented he's going to go home. You see, he's been resisting to go home. If he can get Uriah drunk, well then Uriah will drift on back home and have relations with Bathsheba. When David had called him, he did eat and drink, he made him drunk, and at even he went out to lie on his bed with the servants of his lord, but he didn't go down to his house. David can't get Uriah to go to his house. So it came to pass, David writes a letter. And he sent it by the hand of Uriah. Uriah doesn't know it, he's carrying the letter that seals his fate. David writes in that letter to Joab, put Uriah in the forefront of the hottest battle and leave him there. Retire ye from him, that he may be smitten and die. Wow. Wow. So, it came to pass, Joab observed the city, and he assigned Uriah unto a place where he knew valiant men were. And the men of the city went out and fought with Joab, and there fell some of the people of the servants of David. And Uriah the Hittite died also. Joab sent and told David all that had happened, and charged the messenger, saying, when you tell him the end when thou hast made an end of telling the matters of the war to the king, and if it so be that the king's wrath arise, and he say unto thee, wherefore approached ye so nigh to the city when ye fight? Knew ye not that they would shoot from the wall? Who smote Abimelech the son of Jerubbesheth? Did not a woman cast a piece of a millstone upon him? And remember back in Judges we read that from the wall, that he died in Thebes? Why went ye nigh to the wall? Then say thou, thy servant Uriah the Hittite is dead also. Joab didn't intend for Uriah to die, but David did. And now Joab is somewhat apologetic, and he's fearful to relate the news to David, and Joab doesn't realize this is news that David was anticipating. David was working toward this very end to get rid of Uriah, and sure enough, Uriah has died. So the messenger goes, and he goes to David. He shows David all that Joab had sent him for. The messenger says, the men have prevailed against us, David, and came out unto us into the field, and we were upon them even unto the entering of the gate. The shooters shot from off the wall upon thy servants, and some of the king's servants be dead, and thy servant Uriah the Hittite is dead also. Then David said unto the messenger, thus shalt thou say unto Joab. Oh, David says, let not this thing displease thee, for the sword devoureth one as well as another. Make thy battle more strong against the city, and overthrow it, and encourage thou him. Don't worry about Joab. People die in battle all the time. You see how evil David is there when he says, it's not going to bother us. There's callousness here. David isn't bothered that he sent an innocent man on the battlefield to die. And the reason why he sent that innocent man to die on the battlefield was because David had committed adultery with the man's wife, and is now, she's now going to have David's child. Isn't that sad? All right, well, watch this. When the wife of Uriah heard that Uriah her husband was dead, she mourned for her husband. And when the morning was past, David sent and fetched her to his house, and she became his wife. How about that? And bare him a son. But the thing that David had done displeased the Lord. The Lord watched this go on. David, God has not overlooked what you've done. So the Lord sends Nathan unto David, spokesman. David, I have a message for you. There were two men in one city, the one rich and the other poor. The rich man had exceeding many flocks and herds, but the poor man had nothing, save one little ewe lamb, which he had bought and nourished up. And it grew up together with him and with his children. It did eat of his own meat, and drank of his own cup, and lay in his bosom, and was unto him as a daughter. And there was a traveler who came to the rich man. The rich man spared to take his own flock and of his own herd. But what does he do? He dresses for the wayfaring man the poor man's lamb. Oh, David says, David's greatly angered against that man there, greatly kindled. He says to Nathan, as the Lord liveth, the man that had done this shall surely die, and he shall restore the lamb fourfold, because he did this thing, and because he had no pity. Back in the Mosaic Law, Exodus 22 here, Exodus 22, listen here, Exodus 22, oh my, Verse 1, if a man steal an ox or a sheep and kill it or sell it, he shall restore 5 oxen for an ox and 4 sheep for a sheep. Restitution. You won't steal anymore if you have to start paying back that much. Well, David says, we need to follow the law here. The law says you pay fourfold. Who's that man that stole that 1 sheep? He has to pay fourfold. Ooh, those next 4 words. And Nathan said to David, thou art the man. David didn't want to follow the law, though, when it came to murder, did he? When he sent Uriah on the battlefield to die. David didn't want to obey the Mosaic law when it says don't commit adultery. You see, David was eager to pounce on somebody else's sins, and David overlooked his own. So look, guess what Nathan says? Thou art that man, David. Nathan shocks David there. Nathan said to David, thou art the man. Thus saith the Lord God of Israel, I have anointed thee king over Israel, and I delivered thee out of the hand of Saul. I gave thee thy master's house and thy master's wives in thy bosom, and gave thee the house of Israel and Judah. And if it had been too little, I would have moreover had given unto thee such and such things. Wherefore have you despised the commandment of the Lord to do evil in his sight? Thou hast killed Uriah the Hittite with the sword. You've taken his wife to be your wife, and you've slain him with the sword of the children of Ammon. Yes, God is aware of what David has done, and David will not escape. Now therefore, the sword shall never depart from thine house, because thou hast despised me, and hast taken the wife of Uriah the Hittite to be thy wife. Thus saith the Lord, behold, I will raise up evil against thee out of thine own house, and I will take thy wives before thine eyes, and give them unto thy neighbor, and he shall lie with thy wives in the sight of this sun. For thou didst secretly, but I will do this thing before all Israel and before the sun. Yes, David, you were sneaky about what you did. I'm going to show everybody in Israel what I will do to you now. And David said unto Nathan, I have sinned against the Lord. Yes, Psalm 51, you go read Psalm 51. There's David's confession. He knows he sinned. And Nathan said unto David, the Lord also hath put away thy sin. Thou shalt not die, David. You won't die. Howbeit, because by this deed thou hast given great occasion to the enemies of the Lord to blaspheme, the child also that is born unto thee shall surely die. And Nathan departed unto his house. The Lord struck the child that Uriah's wife bare to David, and it was sick. And David besought God for the child. David fasted and went in and lay all night on the earth. The elders of his house arose and go to him, but he doesn't want to eat. He doesn't want to rise from the earth. He's sad. And on the 7th day, the child died. The servants of David feared to tell him that the child is dead. You know, he was so distraught when the child was dying. Now that the child is dead, what's he going to do? How is he going to reply? When David saw that his servants whispered, David perceived that the child was dead. And he asked, is the child dead? And they said, he is dead. Well, David is indeed paying fourfold. He lost one child right there. That's number 1. David arises, he washes himself and anoints himself and changes his apparel. He comes to the house of the Lord and he worships, and he goes to his own house, and when he required, he eats. Then said his servants, well, what's going on with you? You fasted and wept for the child while it was alive, and then it dies. Now you're eating bread. While the child was yet alive, I fasted and wept, he says. For I said, who can tell whether God will be gracious to me that the child may live? But now he is dead. Wherefore shall I fast? There's no point now. The child is gone. Can I bring him back again? I shall go to him, but he shall not return to me. So David comforted Bathsheba his wife for the loss of the baby, and went unto her and lay with her. And she bare a son, and he called his name Solomon. Peace, Shalom. And the Lord loved him. And he sent by the hand of Nathan the prophet, and he called his name Jedediah because of the Lord. So there's another name of Solomon there, Jedediah. So Joab fights against Rabbah of the children of Ammon and takes the royal city. And he notifies David. He says, I've taken the city of warders. Come and gather the rest of the people together and encamp against the city, lest I take it and make it and call it after my name. So David gathers all the people together. He goes to Rabbah and he fights against it. He took it. He took off the king's crown from off his head, and the weight thereof was a talent of gold with the precious stones. It was set on David's head, on his head there. And he brought forth the spoil of the city in great abundance. So David deals with all the children, all the cities of the children of Ammon there. And he and all the people of Israel returned to Jerusalem. Chapter 13 now. And it came to pass after this, that Absalom, the son of David, had a fair sister, whose name was Tamar, and Amnon, the son of David, loved her. If we go back to chapter 3 here, David had sons born to him in Hebron. Verse 2, 2 Samuel 3:2. His firstborn is Amnon, and his third, verse 3, is Absalom. Those are those two brothers here in 2 Samuel 13 now. Now, Amnon and Absalom have a beautiful sister, and her name is Tamar. Amnon is so vexed. He fell sick for his sister Tamar. She was a virgin, and Amnon thought it hard for him to do anything to her. Now Amnon has a sneaky friend here. His name is Jonadab. He's a very subtle man, crafty. Jonadab speaks to Amnon here. Why are you, being the king's son, lean from day to day? Why aren't you eating? Wilt thou not tell me? And Amnon confesses, I love Tamar, my brother Absalom's sister. So Jonadab, he conspires here, and there's a scheme. He says, I know what you do. You go lie on the bed, you make yourself sick, and when your father comes in, you ask your father, oh, please, have my sister come and give me meat, and dress the meat in my sight, that I may see it and eat it at her hand. So Amnon, he pretends to be sick. Oh, he says, I'm sick. And when the king comes in, Amnon tells the king, David, I pray thee, let Tamar my sister come and make a couple of cakes in my sight, that I may eat at her hand. So David sends for Tamar. Go to your brother Amnon's house and dress him meat. So Tamar doesn't know anything is going on, and David doesn't either. Tamar goes to her brother's house, and he was laid down. She takes flour and kneads it, makes cakes in his sight. She bakes the cakes, and she took a pan and poured them out, the cakes out before Amnon. He refuses to eat. Amnon has all the men to leave, and so he and his sister are by themselves there, and Tamar takes the cakes in. It says, when she had brought them under him to eat, he took hold of her and said, come lie with me, my sister. Now see, she knows what the Mosaic law says. You don't have sexual relations with the sister. And she answers, nay, my brother, do not force me, for no such thing ought to be done in Israel. Do not thou this folly. And I, whither shall I cause my shame to go? And as for thee, thou shalt be as one of the fools in Israel. Now therefore I pray thee, speak unto the king, for he will not withhold me from thee. Howbeit, Amnon did not want to listen to her, and he being stronger than her, he forced her and he lay with her. He raped her. And Amnon hated her exceedingly. It wasn't what he thought it would be, because it was against her will. It wasn't as pleasant as he thought. so that the hatred wherewith he hated her was greater than the love wherewith he had loved her. And Amnon said unto her, Arise, be gone. And he says, Out. And she says, There's no cause, this evil. Isn't that pathetic, huh? This evil in sending me away is greater than the other that thou didst unto me, forcing me. And he would not hearken unto her. Get out, get out. He calls his servant that ministered to him, Put now this woman. See, he won't even call her by her name now. Distance. Put distance between us. Put her out of his mind. Put now this woman out from me, and bolt the door after her. She had a garment of divers colors upon her, for her robes were the king's daughters that were virgins apparelled. And his servant brought her out, and bolted the door after her. Tamar put ashes on her head. She tears her garments of divers colors that were on her, and laid her hand on her head, and went on crying. Absalom her brother said to her, Hath Amnon thy brother been with thee? But hold now thy peace, my sister. He is thy brother, regard not this thing. So Tamar returned desolate in her brother Absalom's house. Now when King David heard of all these things, he was very wroth. Well, what are you going to do, David? David did nothing to punish his son. Here is the king of Israel doing nothing to punish his son, who's guilty of raping his daughter, his son's own sister. David was not a good father. He doesn't comfort his daughter, and he doesn't punish his son. And Absalom spake unto his brother Amnon neither good nor bad. And Absalom hated Amnon, because he had forced his sister Tamar. So 2 full years pass, 2 full years pass, and Absalom conspires. He invites all the king's sons. Behold now, thy servant hath sheep shears. Let the king, I beseech thee, and his servants go with thy servant. The king says, No, my son, let not all go, lest we be chargeable unto thee. And he pressed him, howbeit he would not go, but blessed him. So Absalom says, If not, I pray thee, let my brother Amnon go with us. And the king says, Why should he go? And Absalom insists. He urges David, Let Amnon come, let Amnon come. So finally Amnon will come. David agrees. So Absalom, he commands his servants, Mark ye now, when Amnon's heart is merry with wine, and when I say unto you, Smite Amnon, then kill him, fear not. Have not I commanded you? Be courageous and be valiant. The servants of Absalom did unto Amnon as Absalom had commanded. And word gets to David, Absalom had slain all the king's sons, and there is not one left. Then the king arises, he tears his garments. He lies on the earth, all his servants stood with him. And Jonadab, that old schemer, back Amnon's friend, back at the beginning of the chapter, Jonadab says, Oh, don't worry, only Amnon is dead. Well, it's partly because of Jonadab, huh? Amnon's dead, for by the appointment of Absalom, this had been determined from the day that he forced his sister Tamar. Yeah, and you were responsible, Jonadab, for putting that idea into Amnon's head. All right, guess what? Number 2, David lost a second son, Amnon. Amnon is gone. Now therefore, let not my lord the king take the thing in his heart, to think that all the king's sons are dead. Only Amnon is dead. Absalom flees away. The young man that kept the watch lifted up his eyes and looked, behold, there came much people by the way of the hillside behind him. Jonadab said unto the king, Behold, the king's sons come. As thy servant said, so it is. And it came to pass, as soon as he had made an end of speaking, that behold, the king's sons came and lifted up their voice and wept. And the king also and all his servants wept very sore. Yeah, those other sons of David had escaped. Back in verse 29 there. And look at verse 37. But Absalom fled, and he goes to Talmai, the son of Ammihud, king of Geshur. And David mourned for his son every day. Yeah, but what do you do about it, David? Nothing. Again, David does nothing Had David dealt with Amnon, Absalom wouldn't have been forced to do what he did. So David didn't comfort his daughter. He didn't straighten up his son. And now this other son, who straightened up that other son, yeah, they put him to death. David is doing nothing to help Absalom with his problem either. Oh, how sad. Absalom flees. He goes to Geshur and was there 3 years. So 3 years have passed. And the soul of David longed to go unto Absalom, for he was comforted concerning Amnon, seeing he was dead. Yeah. See, there was justification, David, and you didn't do anything about it. And so Absalom took matters in his own hands. So in chapter 14, there's a wise woman that Joab recruits. And the wise woman, for time's sake, you can read chapter 14. The wise woman speaks to David. And David eventually sees that he needs to bring Absalom back. David understands Joab is involved with this plot here. And so David sends Joab out to fetch Absalom. Now you look here about verse 25. Absalom returns to Jerusalem after 3 years? And it's been 5 years or so since Amnon raped Tamar? 5 years or so, and the matter still hasn't really been resolved because there's still familial strains, family issues, dysfunction. Absalom goes to Jerusalem, but he doesn't see the king's face. But in all Israel there was none to be so praised as Absalom for his beauty. From his feet to his crown there was no blemish in him. He's handsome. For it was at every year that he polled his head, cut his hair. He weighed the hair of his head at 200 shekels after the king's weight. That's 5 pounds. 5 pounds of hair. Absalom had 3 sons and 1 daughter whose name was Tamar. Like his sister. She was a woman of fair countenance. Absalom lives 2 full years in Jerusalem. So now it's been 2 years since Tamar's sexual assault. It's been 3 years since Absalom lived outside of Jerusalem. And now he's back in Jerusalem 2 years. He hasn't seen the king's face. And Absalom wants to see David. And David just does not want to see him. And Absalom tries to get Joab to help him. And Joab doesn't want to get involved. So of course Absalom, he sets Joab's field on fire there. And gets Joab's attention. So Joab, come on, come see the king. 33, Joab came to the king. He informs David, Absalom wants to see you. So Absalom comes in, he bows himself, face to the ground before King David. And David kisses Absalom. Isn't that sad? The first kiss that son has received from his father in how long? David was not a good parent. So it comes to pass, Absalom prepares him chariots and horses, and 50 men to run before him. Now in chapter 15, what Absalom intends to do is take the kingdom from David. David's throne is under attack now, and Absalom, look at verse 6, on this manner did Absalom to all Israel that came to the king for judgment. So Absalom stole the hearts of the men of Israel. Absalom is attempting to take David's place. You come and consult me for advice, not the king. Look at verse 5. And it was so that when any man came nigh to do to him obeisance, he put forth his hand and took him and kissed him. Kiss. That reminds you of what? Judas Iscariot. Well, this is really a picture of the Antichrist here. Absalom is betraying David's trust, his father's trust. Absalom lies and he convinces David, let me go to Hebron. So David sends Absalom, you go on and pay your vow to the Lord. So he goes to Hebron. Absalom goes to Hebron. Now Hebron, that was where David used to reign. So Absalom sends spies throughout all the land of Israel, all the tribes. As soon as you hear the sound of the trumpet, then you say, Absalom reigneth in Hebron. That was Absalom's goal, to take the throne from David. 13. The hearts of the men of Israel are after Absalom, David. And David, he flees. David flees. Let us go. For we shall not else escape from Absalom. Make speed to depart, lest he overtake us suddenly, and bring evil upon us, and smite the city with the edge of the sword. So the king's servants tell the king, behold, thy servants are ready. So the king goes forth, and all his household after him. He leaves 10 women here, concubines, to keep the house. The king goes forth, and they're escaping. Here's the Antichrist, really, trying to take David's throne from Jesus Christ. David is Jesus Christ here, and Absalom is Antichrist. That's all in the future, remember. These are types, these are hints, these are previews of things to come. There's a coup, I guess if you want to call it. Absalom is attempting to overthrow David. So we look at verse 30 now, 2 Samuel 15, verse 30. David went up by the ascent off Mount Olivet and wept as he went up. That's the Mount of Olives. David is weeping on the Mount of Olives because he's been rejected. And Jesus Christ 1,000 years later will be on the Mount of Olives crying because he's been rejected too. Yes, before he dies on the cross, before he's arrested and before he dies on the cross of Calvary there. David had his head covered, verse 30, and he went barefoot, and all the people that were with him, they had their head covered as well. The men here in verse 32, Hushai, David says, if thou pass on with me, then thou shalt be a burden. Don't come with us. But if you want, I'll make you a spy in Absalom's court. If you return to the city and say to Absalom, I will be thy servant, O king, as I have been thy father's servant hitherto, so will I now also be thy servant. Then mayest thou for me defeat the counsel of Ahithophel, used to be a counselor of David, and now he's sided with Absalom. And hast thou not there with thee Zadok and Abiathar the priests? Therefore it shall be that whatsoever thing thou shalt hear out of the king's house, you tell to Zadok and Abiathar the priests. And they'll get word back to David what's going on with Absalom. A plant there. Hushai, David's friend, came unto Jerusalem, and Absalom is in Jerusalem now. You notice there's a believing remnant following David, and an unbelieving remnant following the false king, Absalom. That also pictures Jesus Christ and his followers against the apostate Jews in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And in addition, both of them preview what will happen in the ages to come with the Antichrist. Before Jesus Christ returns, there's that believing remnant waiting for the true king of Israel. There's that apostate nation following the Antichrist before Jesus Christ returns. So there's various parallels. The God who wrote 2 Samuel here, he knows what will come in the future, what other books of the Bible will say. So chapter 16, for time's sake, we're going to have to speed this up. Chapter 16. And when David was a little past the top of the hill, behold, Ziba, that is Saul's grandson's servant, Ziba, the servant of Mephibosheth, that's Saul's grandson, that's Jonathan's son. That servant meets David with a couple of asses, donkeys, saddled, and upon them 200 loaves of bread, and 100 bunches of raisins, and 100 of summer fruits, and a bottle of wine. And of course David says, what do you mean by this? The asses be for the king's household to ride on, and the bread and summer fruit for the young men to eat, and the wine, that such as be faint in the wilderness may drink. And where is your master's son? Behold, he abideth at Jerusalem. For he said, Today shall the house of Israel restore me the kingdom of my father. Mephibosheth believes that he will be king, and David will lose. Then said the king to Ziba, Behold, thine are all that pertaineth to Mephibosheth. And Ziba said, I humbly beseech thee, that I may find grace in thy sight, my lord, O king. And as David comes to Bahurim, there's a man out of the family of the house of Saul, whose name is Shimei. And Shimei curses David. He throws stones at David. Come out, thou bloody man, and thou man of Belial. Insulting David. See, the Lord hath returned upon thee all the blood of the house of Saul, in whose stead thou hast reigned, and the Lord hath delivered the kingdom into the hand of Absalom thy son. Now that's a lie. And behold, thou art taken in thy mischief, because thou art a bloody man. And so Abishai asked, why should this dead dog curse my lord the king? Let me go over. Let me take off his head. All right. The king says, What have I to do with you, ye sons of Zeruiah? So let him curse, because the Lord hath said unto him, Curse David. Who shall then say, Wherefore hast thou done so? You know, that these sons of Zeruiah, they're always wanting to take others' lives. David says, Leave him be. I'm not going to retaliate. Now later, Solomon will be charged with punishing Shimei when David is in his last days. Verse 15, Absalom and all the men of Israel, they gather in Jerusalem, and Ahithophel with him. So it comes to pass, when Hushai, the Archite, David's friend, was come to Absalom, Hushai, see, he's that plant there, that infiltration agent, that spy. Hushai says to Absalom, God save the king, God save the king. Absalom tells Hushai, Is this thy kindness to thy friend? Why wentest thou not with thy friend? And Hushai said unto Absalom, Nay, but whom the Lord and this people and all the men of Israel choose, his will I be, and with him will I abide. And again, whom shall I serve? Should I not serve in the presence of his son? As I have served in thy father's presence, so I will be in thy presence. That's what David instructed Hushai to say. So Absalom asks Ahithophel counsel, and Ahithophel says, Go into thy father's concubine. That's David's servant wives there, which he's left to keep the house. That's those 10 women back in verse 16 of chapter 15. And all Israel shall hear that thou art abhorred of thy father. Then shall the hands of all that are with thee be strong. So they spread Absalom a tent upon the top of the house, and Absalom went in unto his father's concubines in the sight of all Israel. That's exactly what God said would happen is, your wives will be given over to your neighbor, David, because you committed adultery with Bathsheba there. See, all the nations heard about what David did. And they, look, see, God's nation's leader there, David. Listen what he did. See, well, David was told in chapter 12, verse 11, I will raise up evil against thee out of thine own house, and I will take thy wives before thine eyes, and give them unto thy neighbor, and he shall lie with thy wives in the sight of this son. That neighbor turned out to be David's own son, Absalom. And the counsel of Ahithophel, when he counseled in those days, was as if a man had inquired at the oracle of God. Yep, God's will was fulfilled. So was all the counsel of Ahithophel, both with David and with Absalom. So Ahithophel instructs Absalom, let me now choose out 12,000 men. I'll arise this night and pursue after David this night. And when I'll come upon him while he is weary and weak-handed, and will make him afraid, and all the people that are with him shall flee, and I will smite the king only. I'll bring back all the people unto thee. I'll bring them all back to you. The man whom thou seekest is as if all returned. So all the people shall be in peace. The saying pleases Absalom well and all the elders of Israel. Now Absalom has Hushai come. Let's see what he has to say. So here's what Hushai says. Ahithophel's counsel's not good. Now, see, David had sent Hushai to thwart Absalom's plans. And sure enough, Hushai says, what Ahithophel just advised is not good at this time. Here's what Hushai says. Thou knowest thy father and his men, that they be mighty men, and they be changed in their minds, angered, as a bear robbed of her whelps in the field. And thy father is a man of war, and will not lodge with the people. You know, David's wiser than that, Absalom. So don't listen to Ahithophel. Listen to what I have to say. Behold, he is now hid in some pit, or in some other place. It will come to pass, when some of them be overthrown at the first, whosoever heareth it will say, there is a slaughter among the people that follow Absalom. And he also that is valiant, whose heart is the heart of a lion, shall utterly melt. For all Israel knoweth that thy father is a mighty man, and they which be with him are valiant men. Therefore, here's what I counsel you. Hushai's advice. All Israel be generally gathered unto thee from Dan to Beersheba. Remember, Dan to Beersheba, north to south, as the sand that is by the sea, for multitude, and that thou go to battle in thine own person. So shall we come upon thee in some place where he shall be found, and we will light upon him as the dew falleth on the ground. And of him and of all men that are with him, there shall not be left so much as one. Moreover, if he be gotten into a city, then shall all Israel bring ropes to that city, will draw it into the river, until there not be one small stone found there. Destroy. Absalom and all the men of Israel says, Hushai's counsel is greater than Ahithophel. For the Lord had disappointed to defeat the good counsel of Ahithophel, to the intent that the Lord might bring evil upon Absalom. So Hushai says to Zadok and Abiathar, thus and thus did Ahithophel counsel Absalom and the elders of Israel, and thus have I counseled. So go and tell David, lodge not this night, to fit with the advice I gave Absalom. Don't lodge this night in the plains of the wilderness, but speedily pass over, lest the king be swallowed up and all the people that are with him. 17, now Jonathan and Ahimaaz stayed by in Rogel, for they might not be seen to come into the city. And a wench, a maidservant, went and told them. And they went and told King David. Nevertheless, the lad saw them, and he goes and tattles to Absalom. But they went both of them away quickly, and came to a man's house in Bahurim, which had a well in his court, whither they went down. And the woman, the maidservant, took and spread a covering over the well's mouth. She hides them, in other words. So they're looking for Ahimaaz and Jonathan. And the woman says, they be gone over the brook. Verse 20. So when they go and they seek them elsewhere, and they can't find them, they go back to Jerusalem. It comes to pass, when they're departed, she gets them out of the well, and they go and they inform David. Arise and pass quickly over the water, for thus hath Ahithophel counseled against you. David arose, and all the people that were with him, they passed over Jordan. See the Israel's believing remnant with the one true king there? Jesus Christ and his followers. By the morning light, there lacked not one of them that was not gone over Jordan. When Ahithophel saw his counsel was not followed, he saddled his ass, he arose, he got home to his house, to his city. He put his household in order, and he hanged himself, committed suicide, and was buried in the sepulchre of his father. Then David came to Mahanaim. Absalom passed over Jordan. David and Absalom are preparing to fight. 25. And Absalom made Amasa king of the host instead of Joab, which Amasa was a man's son that went in to Abigail, the daughter of Nahash, sister to Zeruiah, Joab's mother. Some more of David's family members, in other words. Verse 26. So Israel and Absalom pitched in the land of Gilead, that's east of the Jordan River. 27. It came to pass when David was come to Mahanaim, these men here bring beds, basins, earthen vessels, wheat, barley, flour, parched corn, beans, and lentils, and parched pulse, and honey, and butter, and sheep, and cheese of kine, cows, for David and for the people that were with him to eat. For they said, the people is hungry and weary and thirsty in the wilderness. All right. Chapter 18. David charges his men, I want you to take Absalom alive. And you can read more about that. Verse 5. And the king commanded Joab and Abishai and Ittai, say, deal gently for my sake with the young man, even with Absalom. And all the people heard when the king gave all the captains charge concerning Absalom. The people go out against Israel, and the battle was in the wood of Ephraim, where the people of Israel were slain before the servants of David. And there was there a great slaughter that day of 20,000 men, for the battle was there scattered over the face of all the country. And the wood devoured more people that day than the sword devoured. Absalom meets with the servants of David. Absalom is riding on a mule. The mule goes under a great oak tree, and his head caught hold of the oak. He was taken up between the heaven and the earth. The mule was under him. It ran off. So now he's hanging in the tree. And a certain man informs Joab here, I see Absalom hanging in an oak. Verse 11. Joab declares to the man, behold, thou sawest him, and you didn't smite him there to the ground? I would have given thee 10 shekels of silver and a girdle. The man said to Joab, though I should receive 1,000 shekels of silver in mine hand, yet I would not put forth mine hand against the king's son. For in our hearing, see, didn't David tell us, don't kill him? Beware that none touch the young man Absalom. Otherwise I should have wrought falsehood against mine own life. For there is no matter hid from the king. And thou thyself would have set thyself against me. You would have tattled on me if I would have done what you said to do. And Joab says, I may not tarry thus with thee. And he took 3 darts in his hand, spears in other words, and thrust them through the heart of Absalom. There's number 3. David's 3rd son dies there. And 10 men that bare Joab's armor compassed about and smote Absalom and slew him. Joab blows the trumpet. The people return from pursuing after Israel, for Joab held back the people. They take Absalom and they throw him in a great pit in the wood, and there's a heap of stones laid over him. All Israel fled, everyone to his tent. Absalom was in his lifetime had taken and reared up for himself a pillar, which is in the king's dale, for he said, I have no son to keep my name in remembrance. And he called the pillar after his own name, and it is called unto this day Absalom's place. Verse 19, then said Ahimaaz, the son of Zadok, let me run and bear the king tidings, how that the Lord hath avenged him of his enemies. And Joab said unto him, thou shalt not bear tidings this day, but thou shalt bear tidings another day. But this day thou shalt bear no tidings, because the king's son is dead. Then said Joab to Cushai, go tell the king what thou hast seen. And Cushai bowed himself unto Joab and ran. Ahimaaz He wasn't even present, and he wanted to go out and give some news. But it says, Cushai had seen. Go tell the king what thou hast seen. And Cushai bowed himself. Then said Ahimaaz, the son of Zadok, yet again to Joab, Oh, see, let me go. But howsoever, let me, I pray thee, also run after Cushai. And Joab said, Wherefore wilt thou run, my son, seeing that thou hast no tidings ready? Now, the news has already gone out. What are you going to go for? But howsoever, said he, let me run. Let me run. I don't have a message, but let me run. Oh, kind of comical there. And he said unto him, Run, go ahead. Oh, meaningless, but go ahead and go. Then Ahimaaz ran by the way of the plain and overran Cushai. And David sat between the two gates, and the watchman went up to the roof over the gate under the wall, and he sees a man running alone. If he's alone, he has tidings, David says. So he comes apace and drew near. The watchman sees another one. Somebody else running, another one. David says, he also brings tidings, news. The watchman says, Me thinketh that the running of the foremost is like the running of Ahimaaz, the son of Zadok. And the king said, He is a good man, and cometh with good tidings. And Ahimaaz called and said to the king, All is well. Is all well? And he fell down to the earth upon his face before the king, and said, Blessed be the Lord thy God, which hath delivered up the men that lifted up their hand against my lord the king. And the king says, Is the young man Absalom safe? Uh-oh. And Ahimaaz answered, When Joab sent the king's servant, and me thy servant, I saw a great tumult, but I knew not what it was. Yeah, see, no message. And the king said unto him, Turn aside and stand here. And he turned aside and stood still. And behold, Cushai came. Here's the one with the news. And Cushai said, Tidings, my lord, the king. For the Lord hath avenged thee this day of all them that rose up against thee. And the king said unto Cushai, Is the young man Absalom safe? And Cushai answered, The enemies of my lord, the king, and all that rise against thee to do thee hurt, be as that young man is. Absalom is dead. And the king was much moved, and went up to the chamber over the gate, and wept. And as he went, thus he said, Oh, my son Absalom, my son Absalom, would God I had died for thee, O Absalom, my son, my son. He lost the third son, David. And it was told Joab, Behold, the king weeps and mourns for Absalom. And the victory that day was turned in the morning unto all the people. For the people heard say that day how the king was grieved for his son. The people gat them by stealth that day into the city, as people being ashamed steal away when they flee in battle. But the king covered his face, and the king cried with a loud voice, Oh, my son Absalom, oh, Absalom, my son, my son. And Joab comes in, he says, Thou hast shamed this day the faces of all thy servants, which this day have saved thy life, and the lives of thy sons, and thy daughters, and thy wives, and the lives of thy concubines, in that thou lovest thine enemies and hatest thy friends. You're crying over somebody who tried to take your kingdom from you. For thou hast declared this day that thou regardest neither princes nor servants. For this day I perceive that if Absalom had lived, and all we had died this day, then it had pleased thee well. Now get up. Now therefore arise, go forth, and speak comfortably unto thy servants. For I swear by the Lord, if thou wilt not go forth, there will not tarry one with thee this night. And that will be worse unto thee than all the evil that befell thee from thy youth until now. It'll be much worse if you don't quit bawling over that lost son enemy, David. Then the king arises and sat in the gate, and they told unto all the people, Behold, the king doth sit in the gate. He wants to tell them something. And all the people came before the king, for Israel had fled, every man in his tent. All the people were at strife throughout all the tribes of Israel, saying, The king saved us out of the hand of our enemies, and he delivered us out of the hand of the Philistines, and now he is fled out of the land for Absalom. And they can't understand it. And Absalom, whom we anointed over us, is dead in battle. Now therefore, why speak ye not a word of bringing the king back? Well, see, our king's gone. What about the real king? What happened to him? King David sent to Zadok and to Abiathar the priest, saying, Speak unto the elders of Judah, saying, Why are ye the last to bring the king back to his house? Seeing the speech of all Israel is come to the king, even to his house. Israel wants me. What about Judah? Ye are my brethren, ye are my bones and my flesh. Wherefore then are ye the last to bring back the king? And say ye to Amasa, Art thou not of my bone and of my flesh? That's Absalom's military leader there. God do so to me, and more also, if thou be not captain of the host before me continually in the room of Joab. And he bowed the heart of all the men of Judah, even as the heart of one man, so that they sent this word to the king, Return thou and all thy servants, Judah and Jerusalem, see, accepts Messiah. This is being pictured here. David is returning to Jerusalem. He comes to Jordan, and Judah came to Gilgal to go to meet the king, to conduct the king over Jordan. There's the second coming. Jesus Christ crosses the Jordan River. And Shimei, the son of Gera, a Benjamite, which was of Bahurim, hasted and came down with the men of Judah to meet King David. And there were 1,000 men of Benjamin with him, and Ziba the servant of the house of Saul, and his 15 sons and his 20 servants with him. They went over Jordan before the king, and there went over a ferry boat to carry over the king's household, and to do what he thought good. And Shimei the son of Gera fell down before the king as he was come over Jordan. See, he had cursed David earlier. Now he's accepting him. He tells David, Let not my Lord impute iniquity unto me, neither do thou remember that which thy servant did perversely the day that my lord the king went out of Jerusalem, that the king should take it to his heart. For thy servant doth know that I have sinned. Yeah, you have. Therefore, behold, I am come the first this day of all the house of Joseph to go down to meet my lord the king. But Abishai the son of Zeruiah answered and said, Shall not Shimei be put to death for this, because he cursed the Lord's anointed? David, here we go again. What have I to do with you, ye sons of Zeruiah, that ye should this day be adversaries unto me? Shall there any man be put to death this day in Israel? For do not I know that I am this day king over Israel? Those sons of Zeruiah, they're always quick to be violent there. Therefore the king said to Shimei, Thou shalt not die. And the king sware unto him. Later, he'll die with Solomon. David will make sure of that. Mephibosheth, the son of Saul, came to meet David. He came to Jerusalem to meet the king. The king says, Wherefore wentest not thou with me, Mephibosheth? Why didn't you come with me? And he answered, My lord, O king, my servant, deceived me. For thy servant said, I will saddle me an ass, that I may ride thereon, and go to the king, because thy servant is lame. And he hath slandered thy servant unto my lord the king. But my lord, in other words, Mephibosheth is saying, My servant lied to you, David. But my lord the king is as an angel of God. Do therefore what is good in thine eyes. For all my father's house were but dead men before my lord the king. Yet didst thou set thy servant among them that did eat at thine own table. Yes, you've been kind to me. What right, therefore, have I yet to cry any more unto the king? The king tells him, Why spake thou any more of thy matters? I have said, Thou and Ziba divide the land. And Mephibosheth said unto the king, Yea, let him take all, for as much as my lord the king is come again in peace unto his own house. Barzillai, the Gileadite, came down from Rogelim and went over Jordan with the king to conduct him over the Jordan. Now Barzillai was a very aged man, 80 years old, that's 80 years old, and he had provided the king of subsistence while he lay at Mahanaim. For he was a very great man, in other words, he's wealthy. David desires Barzillai, Come with me, and I'll feed you in Jerusalem. And Barzillai says, How long have I to live? 80 years old, that I should go up with the king of Jerusalem. I am this day 80 years old, and can I discern between good and evil? Can thy servant taste what I eat or what I drink? The loss of taste. Can I hear any more the voice of singing men and singing women? Can you hear? See? Wherefore then should thy servant be yet a burden unto my lord the king? In Ecclesiastes we'll see the issue of the aging physical body there, and we'll notice, we can recall this. Thy servant will go a little way over Jordan with the king, and why shouldst the king recompense me with such a reward? Let thy servant, I pray thee, turn back again, and I may die in mine own city, and be buried by the grave of my father and of my mother. But behold, thy servant Chimham, let him go over with my lord the king, and do to him what seemeth good unto thee. The king answered, Chimham shall go over with thee, and I will do to him that which shall seem good unto thee. And whatsoever thou shalt require of me, that will I do for thee. And all the people went over Jordan, verse 39. And when the king was come over, the king blessed Barzillai and kissed and blessed him. And he returned to his own place. Then the king went on to Gilgal, and Chimham went on with him, and all the people of Judah conducted the king, and also half the people of Israel. And behold, all the men of Israel came to the king and said unto him, Why have our brethren, the men of Judah, stolen thee away, and have sought the king, and have brought the king, and his household, and all David's men with him over Jordan? And all the men of Judah answered the men of Israel, Because the king is near of kin to us. David's of the tribe of Judah. Wherefore then be ye angry for this matter? Have we eaten at all of the king's cost, or hath he given us any gift? And the men of Israel answered the men of Judah, and said, We have 10 parts in the king, and we have also more right in David than ye. Why then did ye despise us, that our advice should not be first had in bringing back our king? And the words of the men of Judah were fiercer than the words of the men of Israel. Judah accepts David, and finally Israel accepts David. The controversy, but they accept David. Chapter 20. I know we're going over a little over time, so bear with me here. And there happened to be a man of Belial, which is Satan, an evil man. His name is Sheba. So Sheba, he blows a trumpet. He's of the tribe of Benjamin. He says, we don't have any part in David, neither have we inheritance in the son of Jesse. Every man to his tent, so Israel. So every man of Israel went up from after David and followed Sheba, another rebellion. For the men of Judah clave unto their king from Jordan even unto Jerusalem. And David came to his own house at Jerusalem, and the king took the 10 women, his concubines, whom he had left to keep the house, that's the ones that Absalom had relations with, and put them in ward and fed them, but went not in unto them. So they were shut up unto the day of their death, living in widowhood. Then said the king to Amasa, Assemble the men of Judah in 3 days and be present here. Amasa gets the men of Judah together. He tarries longer than the set time. So David tells Abishai, now shall Sheba the son of Bichri do us more harm than did Absalom. Take thou thy Lord's servants and pursue after him, lest he get fenced cities and escape us. And there went out after him Joab's men, and the Kerethites and the Pelethites and all the mighty men, these soldiers. And they went out of Jerusalem to pursue after Sheba the son of Bichri. When they were at the great stone which is in Gibeon, Amasa went down before them, and Joab's garment that he had put on was girded unto him, and upon it a girdle with a sword fastened upon his loins, and the sheath thereof. And as he went forth, it fell out. Joab said to Amasa, art thou in health, my brother? Oh, now watch what happens. And Joab took Amasa by the beard with the right hand to kiss him. But Amasa took no heed to the sword that was in Joab's hand. So he smote him therewith in the 5th rib, and shed out his bowels to the ground. His guts gushed out, and struck him not again, and he died. So Joab and Abishai his brother pursued after Sheba, the son of Bichri. One of Joab's men stood by him, verse 11, and said, he that favoreth Joab, and he that is for David, let him go after Joab. Amasa wallowed in the blood, in the midst of the highway. And when the man saw that all the people stood still, he removed Amasa out of the highway into a field, and cast a cloth upon him, when he saw that every one that came by him stood still. Horrible. The man is all bloody, and his guts are gushed out, and he's dying there and wallowing in his own blood. When he was removed out of the highway, all the people went on after Joab to pursue after Sheba, the son of Bichri. He goes through all the tribes of Israel and Abel and so on. They were gathered together and went also after him. And they came and besieged him in Abel Beth Maacah. They cast up a bank against the city, and it stood in the trench, and all the people that were with Joab battered the wall to throw it down. And there's a wise woman who cries out, hear, hear. Say, I pray you unto Joab, come near hither, that I may speak with thee. And when he was come, the woman says, you're Joab? Yep, I'm he. Hear the words of thine handmaid. She's a wise woman. Watch what she does. 18. They were wont to speak in old times, saying, they shall surely ask counsel at Abel. And so they ended the matter. I am one of them that are peaceable and faithful in Israel. Thou seekest to destroy a city and a mother in Israel. Why wilt thou swallow up the inheritance of the Lord? And Joab answered and said, Far be it from me, for I should swallow up or destroy. The matter is not so, but a man of Ephraim, Mount Ephraim, Sheba, hath lifted up his hand against the king, even against David. Deliver him only, and I will depart from the city. The woman tells Joab, behold, his head shall be thrown to thee over the wall. So the woman goes in to all the people in her wisdom, and they cut off the head of Sheba. So no more him. They throw it out to Joab. He blows the trumpet. They retire from the city, every man in his tent. And Joab gathered them back to Jerusalem to David. So Joab was over all the host of Israel, and Benaiah was over the Kerethites and over the Pelethites, and Adoram was over the tribute, and Jehoshaphat was the recorder, Sheva was the scribe, Zadok and Abiathar were the priests, and so on. So chapter 21, there's a famine in the days of David, 3 years, year after year, and David asked the Lord, what's going on? It's for Saul, for his bloody house, because he slew the Gibeonites. And the king calls the Gibeonites, and now the Gibeonites were not of the children of Israel, but of the remnant of the Amorites, and the children of Israel had sworn unto them, and Saul sought to slay them in his zeal to the children of Israel and Judah. Wherefore David told the Gibeonites, what shall I do? Wherewith shall I make an atonement, that ye may bless the inheritance of the Lord? The Gibeonites say, we don't want silver, we don't want gold, we don't want his house, neither for us shalt thou kill any man in Israel. And he said, what ye shall say, that will I do for you. They answered the king, the man that consumed us, Saul, and devised against us, that we should be destroyed from remaining in any of the coasts of Israel, let 7 men of his sons be delivered to us, and we will hang them unto the Lord in Gibeah of Saul, whom the Lord did choose. David says, yes, I'll do it. Now he's going to spare Mephibosheth, that's Jonathan's son, Saul's grandson. Remember, David's blessing Mephibosheth. He spares Mephibosheth, the son of Jonathan, the son of Saul, because of the Lord's oath that was between them, between David and Jonathan, the son of Saul. The king took the 2 sons of Rizpah, the daughter. So in other words, he takes 7 descendants of Saul, just like they wanted back in verse 6. 7 descendants of Saul, but he spares Mephibosheth's life. So David gives over those sons of Saul to the Gibeonites, and they hang them in the hill before the Lord. They fell all 7 together, and were put to death in the days of harvest, in the first days, in the beginning of barley harvest, spring. So if we look at verse 10, Rizpah the daughter of Aiah took sackcloth and spread it for her upon the rock from the beginning of harvest, until water dropped upon them out of heaven, and suffered neither the birds of the air to rest on them day by day, nor the beasts of the field by night. They tell David about that, what this concubine of Saul had done. David went and took the bones of Saul and the bones of Jonathan his son, verse 12, from the men of Jabesh Gilead. Remember, that was how 1 Samuel ended, which had stolen them from the street of Beth-shan, where the Philistines had hanged them, when the Philistines had slain Saul in Gilboa. And he brought up from thence the bones of Saul and the bones of Jonathan his son, verse 13. And they gathered the bones of them that were hanged, the bones of Saul and Jonathan his son. They were buried in the country of Benjamin, in Zelah, in the sepulchre of Kish his father. And they performed all that the king commanded. And after that, God was entreated for the land. So back in verse 1, the famine is over. The Philistines had yet war again with Israel, and David went down, and his servants with him, and fought against the Philistines, and David waxed faint. And Ishbi-benob, which was of the sons of the giant, the weight of whose spear weighed 300 shekels of brass in weight, he being girded with a new sword, thought to have slain David. But Abishai the son of Zeruiah succored him, helped him, and smote the Philistine and killed him. Then the men of David sware unto him, saying, thou shalt go no more out with us to battle, that thou quench not the light of Israel. You're not going to go to war with us anymore, David, because you're going to end up losing your life. We don't want the light of Israel to be quenched. Verse 18, it came to pass after this, that there was again a battle with the Philistines at Gob. Then Sibbecai, the Hushathite, slew Saph, which was of the sons of the giant. Remember those extra stones that David had? David had 5 stones. He used 1 to slay Goliath. Well, what were those other 4 stones for? Well, for these giants, evidently. Look at verse 22. These 4 were born to the giant in Gath. These various satanic men here. Satan is using these men to taunt Israel in the land. Now look at verse 19. And there was again a battle in Gob with the Philistines, where Elhanan, the son of Jaareoregim, a Bethlehemite, now my tongue is going to all get confused, slew the brother of Goliath, the Gittite, the staff of whose spear was like a weaver's beam. Let me stop here for a moment. The italicized words here are very important in the Bible, in the King James Bible. The brother of, these words, the brother of, are important here. Elhanan did not kill Goliath. Elhanan, in a King James Bible, it says, slew the brother of Goliath. You need the italicized words, the brother of. David killed Goliath, of course, not Elhanan. Elhanan slew the brother of Goliath. There's a big difference. The modern versions remove those words there, and they say that Elhanan slew Goliath. Well, then that's a contradiction with 1 Samuel 17, because David killed Goliath. Now, they want to say that's another Goliath. Look, the brother of Goliath, the brother of Goliath. 1 Chronicles 20, verse 5 says the brother of Goliath, and those words are not in italics. They do belong in the Bible. The brother of Goliath is the proper reading of 2 Samuel 21:19. The King James Bible is correct, and the modern versions are wrong. And all you have to do is go compare 2 Samuel 21:19 with 1 Chronicles 20, verse 5. In a modern version, they disagree. In the King James Bible, they agree. The italicized words belong in the Bible, or you make the Bible a lie. Don't ever take out the King James Bible's italicized words. Never. All right, verse 20. And there was yet a battle in Gath, where was a man of great stature, that had on every hand 6 fingers, and on every foot 6 toes, 24 in number. Strange, huh? 6, 6, 6, and 6. 24 digits, his fingers and toes. And he also was born to the giant. And when he defied Israel, Jonathan the son of Shimeah, the brother of David, slew him. These 4 were born to the giant in Gath, and fell by the hand of David and by the hand of his servants. Chapter 22, verse 1, David spake unto the Lord the words of this song in the day that the Lord had delivered him out of the hand of all his enemies, out of the hand of Saul. Now this is Psalm 18. When we get to Psalms, we'll read more about it. And you can read Psalm 18, but really you can read 2 Samuel 22 on your own time. That's a picture of the second coming of Christ. The earth shaking and trembling, the foundations of heaven are moved, and they shake because God was wroth. There's smoke out of his nostrils and fire out of his mouth. Coals were kindled by it. He bowed the heavens and came down. Darkness was under his feet. He rode on a cherub and did fly, and he was seen upon the wings of the wind, flying over heaven, flying in heaven. The Lord thundering from heaven, the Most High uttering his voice. The rebuking of the Lord, the blast of the breath of his nostrils. Now listen to 2 Samuel 23. 2 Samuel 23. These are the last words of David. David the son of Jesse said, the man who was raised up on high, the anointed of the God of Jacob, and the sweet psalmist of Israel said, the sweet psalmist of Israel, that's David, who we'll see in the book of Psalms. The Spirit of the Lord spake by me, and his word was in my tongue. David knows he is writing and speaking the inspired word of God. David is aware these aren't his words, these are God Almighty's words. The God of Israel said, the rock of Israel spake to me, he that ruleth over men must be just, ruling in the fear of God. He shall be as the light of the morning, when the sun riseth, even a morning without clouds, as the tender grass springeth out of the earth by clear shining after rain. Although my house be not so with God, yet he hath made with me an everlasting covenant, ordered in all things and sure, for this is all my salvation, and all my desire, although he make it not to grow. But the sons of Belial shall be all of them as thorns thrust away, because they cannot be taken with hands. But the man that shall touch them must be fenced with iron and the staff of a spear, and they shall be utterly burned with fire in the same place. Now these are the names of the mighty men whom David had. We read about his military men here. There is the Tachmonite. The same was Adino the Eznite. And there's Eleazar, the son of Dodo, the Ohahite. When they defied the Philistines that were there gathered together to battle, and the men of Israel were gone away, he arose and smote the Philistines until his hand was weary, and his hand clave unto the sword. The Lord wrought a great victory that day, and the people returned after him only to spoil. And then, of course, this man here, Shammah, the son of Agi, the Hararite, the Philistines were gathered together in a troop. There was a piece of ground full of lentils, beans, in other words, and or peas or something like that. And the people fled from the Philistines, but he stood in the midst of the ground and defended it, and slew the Philistines. And the Lord wrought a great victory. He didn't want to give up any of Israel's land, even a little pea patch there, a little garden. And 3 of the 30 chief went down and came to David in the harvest time under the cave of Adullam, and you can read about that. And we'll say more about that when we get to Chronicles. David longing for the water of Bethlehem by the gate. And those 3 mighty men bring him the water. And more of David's military men, you can read their accomplishments. Fighting, slaying the lion, slaying these men. One of them slew an Egyptian. He took the Egyptian's own spear and killed the Egyptian with his own spear. And Asahel, the brother of Joab, of course. Benaniah, etc. And then, of course, verse 39, Uriah the Hittite. 37 in all. Uriah, poor Uriah. Okay, so chapter 24. Finally, we're at the end of 2 Samuel. 2 Samuel 24. Again, the anger of the Lord was kindled against Israel, and he moved David against them to say, go number Israel and Judah. The king sends out Joab, go number. Go throughout all the tribes of Israel from Dan to Beersheba, north to south, and number the people. Joab says, now the Lord thy God add unto the people how many soever there be, an hundredfold, and that the eyes of my Lord the king may see it. But why doth my Lord the king delight in this thing? Notwithstanding, the king's word prevailed against Joab. Joab didn't want to go, but the king, David says, go. And against the captains of the host. So Joab and the captains go out and number the people. They pass over Jordan. They're numbering the people. When they went throughout all the land, they came to Jerusalem, verse 8, at the end of 9 months and 20 days, a long time for a census there. Joab gave up the sum of the number of the people to David the king. There were in Israel 800,000 valiant men that drew the sword, and the men of Judah were 500,000 men. Very many. David's heart smote him after that he had numbered the people. And David said unto the Lord, I have sinned greatly. Yes, you have. See, another failure of David. And that I have done. And now I beseech thee, O Lord, take away the iniquity of thy servant. For I have done very foolishly. For when David was up in the morning, the word of the Lord came to the prophet Gad. Now there's Gad, David's seer, saying, and just like Nathan, in this case it's Gad, God's spokesman to David. Go tell David, thus said the Lord, I offer thee 3 things. Here's your punishment, David. Pick one. Choose thee one of them, that I may do it unto thee. So Gad came to David, tells him, what do you want? 7 years famine in your land? Or do you want 3 months before your enemies while they pursue you? Or that there may be 3 days pestilence in thy land? Now advise and see what answer I shall return to him, to Jehovah God that sent me. David said unto Gad, I am in a great strait. Oh, what do I do? Let us fall now into the hand of the Lord, for his mercies are great. A smart move. And let me not fall into the hand of man. Man won't show mercy, but God will show mercy. So I'm going to let God punish me instead of man. So the Lord sent a pestilence on Israel from the morning even to the time appointed. There died of the people from Dan even to Beersheba 70,000 men. You want to number the men, David? I'll take some out for you. I've taken 70,000 and killed them. And when the angel stretched out his hand upon Jerusalem to destroy it, the Lord repented him of the evil. He changed his mind. Repentance doesn't mean sorrow for sin. Otherwise, the Lord was sinning. Repentance is a change in mind. And said to the angel that destroyed the people, it's enough. Stop. Stay now thine hand. And the angel of the Lord was by the threshing place of here we go again, Araunah the Jebusite. That's in the area of Jerusalem. This will actually be where the temple will be built later under Solomon. And David spake to the Lord when he saw that the angel smote the people, Lo, I have sinned, and I have done wickedly. But these sheep, these people, what have they done? Let thine hand, I pray thee, be against me, and against my father's house. And Gad came that day to David, and said unto him, Go up, rear an altar unto the Lord in the threshing floor of Araunah the Jebusite. David goes according to the saying of Gad. He goes as the Lord commanded. And Araunah looked and saw the king and his servants coming. And Araunah went out, bows himself before the king on his face on the ground. And Araunah says, Why are you coming? Why is my lord the king coming to his servant? And David says, To buy the threshing floor of thee, to build an altar unto the Lord, that the plague may be stayed from the people. And Araunah said unto David, Let my lord the king take and offer up what seemeth good unto him. Behold, here are oxen for burnt sacrifice, and the threshing instruments and other instruments of the oxen for wood. All these things did Araunah as a king give unto the king. And Araunah said unto the king, The Lord thy God accept thee. The king says, No, I will buy it of thee at a price. I don't want this stuff for free, David says. I'll buy it of you, Araunah. Neither will I offer burnt offerings unto the Lord my God of that which doth cost me nothing. So David bought the threshing floor and the oxen for 50 shekels of silver. And David builds an altar to the Lord there. He offers the burnt offerings and the peace offerings. The Lord was entreated for the land, and the plague was stayed from Israel. So that's how 2 Samuel ends. The plague stops. A sacrifice is made in that threshing floor where they would separate the grain from the chaff. Throw it in the air, and the chaff would blow, and the seed, the grain, would settle to the ground, and so on. All right, so that's 2 Samuel. And you can go look in 1 Chronicles and find parallels, and when we get to 1 Chronicles, there'll be more insight into those events not recorded in Samuel there. All right. Father God, thank you for the book of 2 Samuel. Now as we move on into the books of Kings and Chronicles, may you edify, encourage, and enlighten us. And in Christ's name, amen. All right, adios.